Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you for joining us for the workshop for interview tips. We have a fabulous CalU alumnus here to join us, Zach, and he's going to share information, some inside tips that he's going to share with you about some interviewing. So, Zach, let me turn it over to you, and you can share your screen.
Thank you very much. Let me get this moving. All right, are we good to go?
You can go, but your screen didn't share. It shared for a moment and then it went away.
How about now?
No. When you did it earlier, like the first time earlier, oh, looks like something's coming. There it is.
All right, give me 1 second. So hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. CalU, thanks for having me again. Please, by all means, any questions that do come up, please get those to Rhonda. And at Rhonda, don't be afraid to interrupt. I'd rather answer those on the spot and try to wait till the end and maybe pass over something. But just a quick whip through what my company does and my group, and then we'll get into how to look for a job, what to look for, what to do in interviews, and all that good stuff. So, quick intro here. I graduated CalU in 04. In 2010, I started my own company, Huth Technologies. We're a specialized recruiting and staffing group that mainly focuses on placing engineers, project managers, business operations, and executive management. So what's that mean for CalU? Anybody in engineering, anybody in business, anybody in marketing, that would be our forte, I guess, to assist not only entry-level students, but also professionals in the workforce in advancing their careers. We did start a scholarship at Cal back in 2012, the Rugby Athletics Scholarship. And I used to get notification on who was receiving that every year. That has kind of shuttered over the last few years. So I'd be funny if somebody in the group was actually a scholarship recipient, not sure. But anyway, enough about me. Let's move on here. My company, again, our goal here is to provide clients with hardworking, driven candidates who meet the current needs and long-term goals of their businesses, while at the same time maintaining clear communication with all the individuals involved in our business, and above all, recognizing that our internal staff is our greatest asset. And I can say this honestly, half of my staff, even though it is small, is CalU alumni. So we definitely try to stick close and stick together, that's for sure. Here's our areas of expertise. We mainly specialize in manufacturing and construction type groups, which would cover anything high tech, anything building related, anything engineering, anything you could think of that's going on in the area that you may have heard of, we'll probably have our hands in somewhere. So that's us at a quick glance. Let's start off by talking about what you want to do, right? Everybody wants a job. But the best thing you can do for yourself right now is figure out what kind of job you do want and what's going to be best for you. And I know that's tough just graduating, but like I think I heard Rhonda say earlier, you want to figure out how to use your major, right? You want to use your major to make money. So if you look here in the center, this is your ideal job. And we work our way outside or from the inside out, actually. So your ideal job has to consist of what you really enjoy doing, right? You're at work half your wake life. You want to enjoy what you're doing, what you're good at doing, and things people get paid to do, right? You can't have one of these just exist. You need to get paid. You need to enjoy what you're doing. You need to be good at it. There's another bubble on the outside of that. That's where dreams are made of, right? So if you want to be a woodworker, or if you want to be an Instagram model, or whatever it may be, that's attainable, right? You have to identify that may be a dream. What lives on the outside of that is called delusion, right? And the only difference between delusion and dreams is feasibility. So if you want to be, I don't know, I talked to a guy interviewed a person this morning that wanted to be a digital marketing analyst, and that's his major. That was very much attainable. I've also talked to folks who wanted to be pro athletes, but they maybe just had an injury. Is it that attainable? I don't know. This is self-realization right here. So I'm happy to work with anybody on this, but it's really easy a math equation, right? What are you good at doing? What do you want to do? I'm sorry, what do you really enjoy doing? What are you good at doing? And what are things people get paid to do? That can land you somewhere here. I always tell folks to answer the question too. If you had $20 million in the bank right now and didn't have to work, what would you be doing? That somewhere would land you in these areas. And from here, identify, okay, what direction do we go? Right here, however can my brilliance be captured in a one-page resume? Well, I'm going to tell you that right here, resume writing. So companies, they get hundreds of thousands of resumes a year, right? You need to keep it simple, very, very concise, very to the point. Proofreading, simple typos, grammatical errors, that can eliminate you right off the bat. A resume in Word format. I cannot stress this enough, that Word will parse into any database out there. PDFs, maybe. Other forms, not so much. Text boxes, especially on PDFs, tend to consolidate, and then your resume is rendered useless. Not something you want to happen, especially when the HR professionals scanning through hundreds of resumes. If they can't read yours, they pass it right by. I've been there before, I've seen it happen. Be prepared to use at least 2 references as well. And this could be preferably somewhere you worked, a previous supervisor. So I'll come back to that in a second. And it can also be a professor. Back to work. It's important to not have your first W-2 be your first job out of college. So any job is better than no job. I would say having something to reference of where you worked, whether it be Wendy's or retail of some sort or anywhere during school, is great. That carries a lot of weight. Internships are a lot better. Co-ops are even better. So if you had 3 summers of co-oping at, say, at American Eagle, and then applied to a job at American Eagle, I'd say your odds are pretty good about getting that job. Resume format. Now I have this, you might have a little trouble seeing this. We had trouble compressing it, but I can also send this out for Rhonda to distribute to the group. We used Wiz Khalifa. Many of you may not know, he's a mechanical engineer that graduated from Pitt back in 2016. We used his likeness here, and I have a copy on hand so I can read down through a little bit of this, but what to do, what not to do. But there's no formatting on here that is a text box or anything out of the ordinary. So his resume, this resume would parse very easily into any database out there. So the pandemic changed everything, changed a lot of things, right? The last year was very tough for a lot of people as far as getting on site to interview, as far as just getting the word out there, companies hiring. I can tell you from my perspective, in my bubble that I live in, we stopped for about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks last April. Since then, we've been going nuts. It's been crazy busy. We can't find enough people. We haven't been able to find enough people. I'm looking internally for my group. I'm looking externally for every customer we have. A lot of the folks, they're still doing on-site work. They're taking precautions, social distancing, masks, separating barriers. A lot of folks are also doing online, whether it be Zoom or Teams or whatever, virtual interviews as well. We've had folks getting hired off of virtual interviews. And is this going to stay this way? Maybe elements of it, right? As the pandemic winds down, things get a little more relaxed. People start to come into the office a little more. We're hearing rumblings now of, they're saying by Labor Day, folks will be back in the office full time. That we're going to start the migration around 4th of July. So that's kind of the standard that we're hearing right now. That could change, but it's important to know what to do, what not to do, especially on a screen. My guys, you can see how much I've moved around like this during this presentation. That's why I told our folks, keep elbows up is good. Because if I'm too close and you're just squirming around, it's not going to look good. But if you can see the person that talks with their hands, moving their hands, then it all makes sense. See, applying for jobs. So we have the standards: Career Builder, Monster, LinkedIn, Indeed. There's more out there. ZipRecruiter. There's a handful of job boards. The key is keep it consistent. Have the same resume on all of these job boards. as you apply to jobs with certain companies, feel free to cater your resume, maybe to highlight a little more of your experiences that would be applicable to that company. But at the end of the day, you want to have that covered in your resume. The key is right now, be found. You want to be found. Back to the first slide I did show, one of the first slides with the delusion bubble and the dream bubble. Know what you want to do. That's first and foremost. Have an objective. Be very clear. And beyond that, do your homework on the companies you're applying to. You know who you're applying to. Know what they do. Know where they're going. Know who else works there. With social media, especially LinkedIn, you could type in the name of that company and see most, if not all, the employees that work for that company. There's no reason you should be flying blind at this point. So these are the fun ones, right? The do's and don'ts of social media. So as things progress, become more of a digital type, not economy, but digital type, the word for it would be out there, community here. And everybody looks at everybody's social media before they interview anybody. So college, fun, right? Top guy, is this you? Ask yourself, is this guy you or person you right now? If it is, you should probably change quickly, right? It doesn't take much to clean up these social media accounts, but this, I can tell you firsthand, this is the first thing people do when they get resumes they like or see folks that they like. They check out social media, Googling their names, looking on LinkedIn, looking on Facebook, looking on Instagram, whatever else may exist out there. It's very important to have these clean, looking professional. At the very least, a neutral stance is where you want to be. So might be not so dressed up like this bottom one, but maybe not shirtless like the top one, right? So what's the middle ground? Casual clothing, that's fine. So that brings you up to everything up until that point was about interviewing. So this brings us to the interview, or I'm sorry, everything up to that point was about applying for jobs, trying to get in the door to brings us to interviewing at this point. So are you ready to interview? That's where we're at this point. I can send over to some sample questions that you may encounter during the interview. And there are also questions you might want to ask during the interview. But again, like I said before, research the company prior to interviewing. There's no reason you shouldn't have at least a couple hours into looking at the people that work there, what the company does, any articles that come out, any trend or data reports that are being published about that company. This is very important. Be 15 minutes early for your interview. No more, no less. Anticipate traffic. So if you show up and you thought there was going to be traffic, but there wasn't, and now you're a half hour early, know where you can go to go chill for a little bit. Dunkin' Donuts, Panera Bread, anywhere. Just go hang out somewhere, get to the company's parking lot 15 minutes early, and then take your time getting into the building. All right, no rushing. Don't get there and sit in their parking lot for a half hour. It doesn't look good. And people could think it's weird. That's all I gotta say. Do not bring your cell phone into the interview. The only caveat to this would be is your phone a large phone that maybe you have a portfolio on? And if that's the case, maybe you might want to think about a tablet or a laptop of sorts you could show that portfolio on. But the worst thing could be is having your phone ring during the middle of an interview. We've had this happen before. We've had candidates discounted by this happening. It's rude and shows no respect for the person who's investing their time in the interview. When asked what you want to do in your career, you should have a purposeful answer ready, not just I need a job. Think back again to that delusion bubble, right? What is your goal here? What's going to be the best job for you? What would you do if you didn't have to work? And how does that coincide with what the company does? Dress for the part. Before the interview, confirm what is expected. What is the expected attire for the position? All right, if you're going to be a welding manager or a welding engineer, you might not need to put on a suit and tie. As a matter of fact, it might be dangerous to have on a suit and tie. Loose clothing, you get caught in machinery. If you're doing a plant tour, just really have a good idea of what the dress expectation is going to be. Hygiene, shower, brush hair, brush teeth, avoid overdoing it with cologne or perfume. These are all things that could turn people off. You have about 11 seconds, 7 to 11 seconds to make that first impression. After that, it's all lost. People have made their judgment. And it sucks to say that, but that's how the world works. If you're interviewing for a company, you are interviewing for a company as much as they're interviewing you. So again, when you leave there, as soon as you leave there, ask yourself, can I see myself working here? Do I like the people that I've interviewed with? Can I see myself working with them? This is going to make your life very easy if you like what you do. If you don't like what you do, you're going to be very miserable for God knows how long until you maybe change jobs or take a new career path. Any questions so far, Rhonda? I can't see the notification.
Zach, nothing yet, but I will definitely let you know when we do.
All right, sounds good. All right, so yeah, my boss told me to dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Now I'm sitting in a disciplinary meeting dressed as Batman, right? These are probably do nots, right? Do not be a fool. Do not just think this is your world and it's all about you, right? There's got to be respect, synergistic on the side of the employer and the employee. There's fun that can be had at work, but there's also crossing lines too. And you don't want to do that too early. I'm not saying do it at all, but if you do it early, you might sabotage yourself at that company. So we borrowed this this chart here from Pitt. They did a pretty good job of putting this together in their career services department. And this is actually what we use as a template for all interviews, prep emails we send out to our candidates. So business casual versus professional. Again, know what it is, where you're interviewing. During oil and gas, when oil and gas was really booming around here, for some reason, the hiring managers were offended by ties. Then all of a sudden, oil and gas subsided, and those same managers are now wearing ties again and suits, and it ebbs and it flows. The style, know what's expected by the employer, and there's no real silver bullet except for just clean, nice fitting, age appropriate clothing. So I can go into more detail about that if there's any questions. But right here, again, casual versus professional, female, male attire. The biggest difference you can see here with casual versus formal or professional, if you will, would be the matching. Suits tend to be all one color, and the casuals tend to not be. That has changed over the years too. Suits are a little more mix and match these days. You can wear multicolored or a different color jacket with different colored pants, and also wear a tie with that, or not wear a tie with that. So this is always fun too. This seemed to probably be the most valuable of the presentation, part of the presentation I've done in the past, was salary breakdowns. And why I say that is, years ago, I was recruiting for Consol Energy in-house, looking for mining supervisor trainees. And they still may recruit for those kind of folks on CalU's campus. But what it was fun to recruit for, because you had eager candidates coming out of school looking to get started in whatever career they were going to pursue. Mainly, I was looking for the engineering oriented folks. And they were offering, it was like $75,000 right off the bat. First job out of school, amazing salary. But then you start doing the math and break it down here. There's 2080 straight time hours in a year. That means 2,080 divided by 40 hours in 1 week. Now, Consol had these folks, they were working 12-hour shifts. They had to be there an hour before their shift and stay an hour late to make the transition. So now you're 14 hours on site, plus whatever commute you had to make to get to the mine at the time, which the mines aren't in a urban areas or any kind of suburban areas. They're pretty out there in the rural areas. And if you had to make an hour commute, now you're looking at 16-hour days. All right. So that salary 75 was quickly reduced into maybe an hourly. I forget what we really calculated out to. It was like 14 or 16 bucks an hour, which didn't that make a lot of sense to some people. It did, if that's what they wanted to do, and that's what the career they wanted to pursue, a career in mining and energy. That was fine. But if you were looking for a work-life balance, which tends to hit probably in your mid-20s, you're really looking for that, you need to analyze salary versus hours that you're putting in. So right here, salary divided by 2080 working hours in 1 year equals your hourly rate. Calculating salary, hourly rate times 2,080 hours in a year equals your salary. This doesn't include overtime in here. Value of time off. Take your 8 hours per day times the amount of days off times the hourly rate. That will give you the value of your vacation days. Some positions don't have vacation. Just if you're working a contract position, it may be time worked as time paid. We have a handful of contract workers right now working for clients, and during the contract period, it's time worked as time paid. Value of medical benefits. Traditional students, this really, I don't think applies too much because I think you could stay on your parents' benefits and medical coverage up until 26, I believe. But if you're non-traditional or your situation may not be that, you need to know what the cost of medical benefits are. As an entrepreneur, I pay for my own medical benefits. I also pay for my employees' medical benefits. And if they don't need them, that could be a perk. I could maybe put that money back in their pocket. So knowing the value of what the benefits are is very important. Same with the 401k, same with a pension plan, and any other perks that the company may give. Vehicle reimbursement, fuel reimbursement, mileage reimbursement. It all comes down to the value of the employment, not just compensation, total value of employment. So medical benefits, again, cover that a little bit. Know what it would cost you to get on your own package. I believe it's still November, I believe, when everybody has to renew their benefits, and they have to have those in place by the first of the year. So if you get the wrong plan or opt to skip coverage, that you may have to wait a whole year to get your coverage. So know what that is on the way in, and know what the value could be in case you may have to buy your own at some point. So any questions?
Zach, I just dropped a line in the chat, encouraging people if they have any questions so far to put them in the chat, but none yet.
Sounds good. Well, that's where I wanted to be brief on this, Rhonda. Hopefully I didn't go too fast, but I wanted to open up more of a Q&A session. But if we're good, then we're good. Any follow-ups can be emailed to me if they like to.
Zach, thank you for doing such a thorough, overview, and in such a quick amount of time too. We appreciate that. I guess one question that I have, because you've interviewed a lot of people, you've seen a lot of good interviews and a lot of bad interviews. What are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen people make when they're interviewing? That's kind of, it's been interview over at that point in your mind. And on the flip side, what are some of the things that really stood out to you that you liked that someone did in their interview?
I think it can be answered with the same, or the question can be answered, have the same answer to it is preparation, lack of preparation, and then being prepared. So when somebody comes in disorganized, not knowing what they're looking for, shows up late, it's not really funny. It's funny in hindsight, but last summer I interviewed a person, and they showed up late for the interview, no apologies. And then they showed up late for their first day at work. And I was like, nah, done. I think that was my shortest tenured employee I ever had. It was about 11 minutes, I think it took. So it just, being punctual is key. Being prepared when you show up is key. And looking like you're ready to perform. Because that's what ultimately these employers are hiring for, is high performers. That's what everybody wants. And it is competitive. But the ones who are the most prepared, the ones that come in dressed sharp, ready to contribute, those are the best employees.
That's awesome. Zach, can you say a word too about the importance of interviewees giving examples of their accomplishments? So in other words, do you ask behavioral questions, kind of the tell me about a time when, where someone really, you want to hear specific examples of what they've done? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, a lot of folks will do what's called STAR interviewing. So specific problem, time constraint, was it achievable, A, and then response or how was it responded to? So yeah, it's more of a, can you tell me about a time when maybe you had a lack of resources to complete a task and you still had to proceed? And it's more storytelling than it is just one word answers. The yes, no interviews, I don't know if they ever existed, but you need to be able to tell a story. You need to be able to cite examples, specific examples. I know on the front end for our clients, we always ask for greatest accomplishment professionally. And if we're talking to an entry level student or a candidate who's 22 years old and never worked a day in their life, it's kind of like, it's hard to say what has been done professionally. And then they may, again, being competitive, they may lose out that role to somebody who had a job at Dairy Queen, just because they have process background or had worked for a boss before and knows what is expected in the world.
That's great, Zach. Thank you for your insight on that. I know a lot of our students worry sometimes they don't have a lot of experience, but I think many times they undervalue that experience that they've had working the typical jobs that a college student might work at. So that's great advice. There is a question from Rebecca, and she's asking, to what extent should you just be yourself in an interview? She says, I feel like it's super important for an employer to know who you are as a person, but where does personality clash with professionalism?
I say always be yourself, right? So and that can be a good and a bad thing. Like if you're a jerk, then don't be a jerk. Like you got to pull it back a little bit. But I think you should always proceed. You're going to be the best you can be when you're being yourself. So I say always do that, but also know who your audience is as well. And then in turn, if you can't be yourself in front of that employer, you may be interviewing for the wrong job. And that should be a red flag right there. Just maybe stop and reevaluate. I'm a huge fan of just, if there's something uncertain, stop, reevaluate. Because you don't want to get yourself down too far down any given direction, then have to rework everything you've just built, especially when even now you've invested how much time into a certain major. Why would you have to undo everything and go backwards? You don't want to do that. So
Good.
yeah, I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Zach, another question. When does the interview really start for you? So in other words, other than walking in the door and meeting with you for the first time, are there other things that are kind of make or break factors? How a candidate communicates with you via email, or how they treat your front office staff? I mean, when does the interview really start, and how important are those other things?
I think, this day and age, it starts, it's starting now. Like I said, with the social media accounts, I could probably, if I looked onto the participants here and said, oh, okay, like I'm actively hiring for an intern right now. I interviewed a person from Duquesne this morning, and I'm looking. I have an entry-level position posted and an intern position. They can be one and the same. But it comes down to now, clean up the social media accounts. Who are you? Who does the virtual community see you as? How do you project yourself in that light? I remember years back, there was a person I met at a job fair, Westpacs. Really, really liked her. Really liked her. She lives over the hill from me, or from my office. And I was thinking about bringing her in, and hey, you're pretty good. You're pretty sharp. We talked a little bit, and I Googled her name just by chance, and a bunch of arrest records. Public articles, not just the records. I'm talking like articles that were published about her being arrested, being a disruptor. And then kind of you makes you question, we're not that here, right? Do I really want that person here? And it really did. I never did do anything, never did proceed. I'm not sure what she's doing nowadays, but as you get closer to graduation, I'd say midway through the year, we're close. Are there any seniors, graduating seniors in this group?
If anybody is graduating,
Yeah, I am.
believe it. Yeah, I was gonna say, John,
Yeah,
I believe that John is. Yeah. And Rebecca, the folks that have dropped some things in the chat.
Okay.
And Zach, John Bazance, he had mentioned that he's an EET, CET, and computer science major that's graduating in May. So he'd love to connect with you. So if you want me to put your email in the chat, I can do that. Or
yeah, absolutely. Best thing is send me a resume, and I'll follow up when I get it. But yeah, for you graduating folks, you have what, a month and a half, not even, till you're out there, and the average job search takes about 6 weeks. So, do the math. It's like right now is game time. It's go time. We have folks still in college interviewing right now for certain jobs. And John, you might be one of them here in a couple hours when we speak. You never know. So it's a matter of stuff can be put on pause. And when folks, hiring managers, no matter the age of the hiring manager, are looking at anybody, I still bring it back to that social media. You need to clean that up. We've had candidates discounted. This happened a year ago. I like this engineer for a position, but the hiring manager didn't like what he had on his social media page. I didn't think it was that bad. It was just him four-wheeling a bunch of trucks and drinking beer on the back of a dirt bike, and nothing that out of the ordinary, but it was like he just didn't like it. I'm like, okay, I get it, it's fine. And that's what it all falls. You need to be able to compete. And again, that neutral line, neutral dress, neutral hairstyle, neutral attitude, it gives you options. If you go too far in any one direction, you may limit yourself. And so, again, don't not be yourself, but be the best, most polite self you can be. I guess that's what I'm saying with that. So
that's a really good point, Josh. And you never, I mean, I think the difference is you never know who's looking at your resume when you send it out and what their stance is. So kind of going that, that middle of the line route is a safe bet, but also thinking about what culture, how important company culture is to you and where you want to fit in and where you're going to be able to be yourself. So
that is 90% of what we recruit for is company culture. The 10% left is experiences, which can be taught easily. So that I'm glad you mentioned that. That is key, having a company culture that folks fit into.
Yeah.
And that comes back to that I think fourth slide I did of knowing what you want to do. I know it's tough as a young person. It's tough as a new grad. You're going from high school to college and then getting kicked out in the real world really quickly, and it's tough. But the quicker you can get that idea, the quicker you can get a direction, the better you will be. And we talk about it internally with my group all the time. Have your future self thanking your past self. So next Friday, I want to be thanking myself for doing what I'm doing today. Next month, I want to be thanking myself for what I did yesterday. And it all connects. Everything down the line connects. So.
Zach, one other question. What would you suggest is the best method of job searching? So Rebecca's saying, I tend to scroll through Indeed, Monster, Google Jobs, and find jobs that I'm qualified for and are within my location range, which is, pretty broad, she's saying, for her. But it's, is there a better way to do the search? And I guess maybe more specifically, how much do you use LinkedIn, and do you like when people reach out to you through LinkedIn or some other, more personal way of connecting?
It should be a pie graph. So of different effort in different areas. I would say the stuff that's really easy, like Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, you can set yourself reminders, and we call them agents on this side, but they're more reminders when jobs pop up that fit what you're looking for. So that can be done easily. LinkedIn is really good too. You can get on there as well and set up some reminders, I believe, not reminders, alerts, I guess the word I'm looking for. Set up some alerts on certain jobs. But here's the thing too, that's tough. And you said Rebecca had asked that question?
Yes.
Okay, it's tough because some of these jobs, if you're a sales or if you're a marketing major, you have options. There's marketing and then there's sales. But each job can be called 100 different titles. So you may not be finding the title you're looking for. So my suggestion with that, and I was taught this back when I was graduating CalU, was pick 5 to 10 companies you want to work for, and then pursue those companies relentlessly. And you may get them, you may not, but either way, at least you have a direction. And as you can check one off, replace it with the next one. And so it might be 84 Lumber, American Eagle. I don't know, just naming companies. We're in the CalU network, pretty embedded in the CalU network. Consol Energy or CNX. Those Deloitte, names. Those are big companies, bigger. There's a lot of smaller companies too, but you could use LinkedIn as more of a networking, to where you could go through the contacts of the people that you see are working at the companies you've identified and maybe see where they used to work, and then start building that whole network matrix around that. All at the same time, letting Indeed, Career Builder, Monster do your work for you by sending you alerts. So it's different. It's how you want to spend your time and invest your time. In the front end, I would invest quite a bit setting everything up so you get the result on the back end, and maybe you have some options.
Zach, really good points. And one thing that I want to emphasize, students' career coaches can help them with that too, identifying what are some of the common job titles in the field that you're interested in. I'm not sure a lot of people know, on LinkedIn, you can go into California University of Pennsylvania's site and click on the alumni link, and then search those alumni by what your major is. And that's a really cool way to explore, where did people of your same major go after they left Cal U? You can see their profiles. You can see kind of what their career path has been. And when you reach out to them, I think they're more likely to respond to you because you have that common bond of having been a Cal U student. So I feel like, that alumni link on Cal U's LinkedIn page is one of the most underused job search strategies that we always like to show students how to use. And Zach, I know you're on there, so.
Yeah. It comes up every morning. I get a suggested contacts feed. The first bunch is Cal U. And quite frankly, anybody that has a little banner on LinkedIn that says open to work, it's green. I'm click blindly. I don't know what majors they are sometimes. I just send them an email and I'm getting resumes every day. But if you're looking for work, that's a good, nice indicator to recruiters and potential employers. And I'm not the only one doing what I do. I have competition. The smaller companies we work with, the hiring managers are doing the same thing. They have LinkedIn accounts looking for their own employees. So it's just a matter, like what I said earlier, about being found. And yeah, LinkedIn is definitely, you can isolate a little more on LinkedIn, which is nice, and see that alumni network. And there's been some in the recent years, I'm going to have to say, when I graduated Cal, it's kind of like, yeah, we're Cal U, let's get to the world. And this is fun. It was just getting momentum. But nowadays, there's a nice, healthy, strong alumni network out there with some substantial people in some substantial roles right now. I mean, like Nigel Wright's definitely one of them. I don't know if you guys know him. Like he's holy, yeah. He was after me. And, what's that?
He's working at Uber.
Yeah, he just sent me a guy the other day, like his brother or something again, said, hey, can you help him? And like, man, that guy has like climbed to the top from Bombardier to Uber, and just so yeah, any of the engineering guys, I mean, I would be for sure be connecting with Nigel on there because you never know where he's gonna end up. Once Uber sells, say they sold off their tech side, he may end up somewhere else, and he's gonna take his whole team with him. And that's how this world works. The world's a very small place anymore when it comes to people.
Absolutely.
Geographically, it's huge, but small one people.
Zach, one more question from Haley. When asked what our greatest weakness is, how can we make that a positive thing? What are kind of the, the danger zones of answering that question? How can you make it a positive?
An old boss of mine used to always say your greatest weakness was your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness, right? Because you can't do one thing without leaving a gap for another thing. So it's probably, I've found that it's best to show a compliment. So if I'm impatient, right, that's one of my greatest, well, that'd be a weakness. I'm impatient, but I can also get a lot of stuff done because I'm impatient, right? So I would always suggest trying to spin it into how's a weakness going to complement a strength, and take that approach, and then apply that somehow to a business. If somebody asks you what's your greatest weakness, you're like, I hate vanilla, the flavor of vanilla, but you're going to work as an ice cream taster. It might not be the best weakness to voice. So
very good points. Well, Zach, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and we love having alumni come back. I guess one thing I would emphasize to everyone is the best way to prepare for an interview is to practice. Just like riding a bike, don't make the most important time the first time you've ever ridden a bike. So do a practice interview in the Career Center. You can schedule them via your Handshake account with your career coach, and they can help you with that LinkedIn profile too. So Zach, thanks again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, feel free to send my contact info to everybody. They can reach out.
Absolutely. I dropped it in the chat, but it's zach@huthtechnologies.com, correct?
Yes.
Zach?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks,
Awesome.
Zach.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.